The Nevada desert stretched endlessly under the blanket of stars, a canvas of silence broken only by the whisper of wind through sagebrush. Marcus Rivera wiped the grease from his hands, stepping out of his workshop to catch the cool night air. Living 30 miles from the nearest town had its perks. No noise, no distractions. Just him and his art when he wasn't fixing vehicles for the locals. That's when he saw it. A streak of silver fire carved across the heavens, but unlike any meteor he'd witnessed before. This one curved, slowed, and seemed almost controlled. His artist's eye tracked its descent, noting how it pulsed with colors that didn't belong in any earthly spectrum. Violets that shifted to emerald, then to a gold that made his heart race. The impact came with a muffled whoom rather than an explosion. Perhaps 2 miles into the desert, Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed his emergency kit, jumped in his old pickup, and drove toward the settling cloud of luminescent dust. What he found defied every rational thought. The craft, for it was undeniably a craft, lay half buried in the sand, its surface rippling like liquid mercury. Strange symbols glowed along its hull, fading slowly like dying embers. But it wasn't the impossible vessel that stole his breath. It was her. She lay crumpled beside an opening in the craft's side, her slender form covered in fabric that seemed woven from starlight itself. Her skin held a faint pearl-like luminescence, and her hair, was it silver or white or some color human eyes couldn't properly process? Blood, purple and shimmering, seeped from a gash on her forehead. "Hey, Marcus," whispered, kneeling beside her. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, large, violet eyes with flecks of gold that seemed to swirl like galaxies. Fear flashed across her delicate features as she tried to scramble away, only to cry out in pain and collapse. "Easy, easy," Marcus said, holding up his hands. "I'm not going to hurt you, you're injured." She spoke then, a melodic stream of sounds that resembled no language he knew, yet somehow conveyed desperation and pain. When he reached for her, she flinched, but exhaustion won over fear. Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He couldn't take her to a hospital. Questions would be asked, authorities called. Instead, he gently lifted her, surprised by how light she felt, and carried her to his truck. Back at his cabin, he laid her on his couch and did his best with basic first aid. The purple blood had already begun to coagulate, healing at an impossible rate. She watched him with those cosmic eyes, wary but gradually calming as he worked with careful, gentle hands. "Marcus," he said, pointing to himself, then gestured to her, raising his eyebrows in question. She hesitated, then whispered, "Nira." The word came out accented strangely, but understandable. Over the next hours, they developed a crude communication. Through gestures and drawings, Marcus sketched on his artist's pad, Earth, humans, his cabin. Nira touched the paper, and the graphite seemed to shimmer and move, creating a response, a world of 3 suns, cities of crystal, and ships that sailed between stars. When she tried to stand, she swayed dangerously. Marcus caught her, and for a moment they were close enough that he could see his reflection in her impossible eyes. She pulled back quickly, but not before he saw something there, vulnerability, and perhaps loneliness that echoed his own. As dawn approached, painting the desert in shades of rose and gold, Marcus made her understand she could stay. He pointed to the spare room, mimed sleeping, eating, safety. The relief in her expression made his chest tight with an emotion he couldn't name. While she rested, Marcus returned to the crash site, but where the craft had been, only disturbed sand remained. No evidence except his memories and the impossible girl sleeping in his spare room, standing in his kitchen, watching the sunrise paint the mountains. Marcus wondered what he'd gotten himself into. He was a simple man. He fixed cars, painted landscapes, lived quietly. Now he harbored a being from another world, one whose presence made his heart race in ways that had nothing to do with fear. From the spare room came a soft humming, alien melody that somehow sounded like home. Marcus closed his eyes and listened, already knowing his life would never be the same. He'd found something extraordinary in the desert, something that transcended the boundaries of worlds. He just didn't know yet how extraordinary she truly was, or how deeply their fates would intertwine. Among the stars, 3 weeks had passed since the night Nira fell from the stars, and Marcus's remote cabin had transformed into something altogether different. Where once silence reigned, now soft laughter and the scratch of brushes on canvas filled the air. His workshop, usually dedicated to mechanical repairs, had become a shared space where Earth met the cosmos in unexpected ways. "No, like this," Marcus said gently, adjusting Nira's grip on the paintbrush. She'd taken to art with an enthusiasm that surprised them both, though her techniques defied every rule he knew. Where he mixed colors, she somehow made them sing, creating hues that shouldn't exist with regular paints. "This?" Nira asked, her English improving daily. She had an uncanny ability to absorb language, as if her mind processed information differently than humans. The brush moved across the canvas, leaving a trail of sunset orange that seemed to pulse with inner light. Perfect. His hand lingered on hers a moment too long, and they both pretended not to notice. The rumble of an approaching engine broke the moment. Marcus recognized the sound. Jasper's ancient motorcycle, held together by rust and stubbornness. His oldest friend made the trip from town once a week, and Marcus had been dreading this visit. "That's Jasper," he said, catching Nira's worried glance. "Remember what we practiced?" She nodded, quickly pulling on the oversized hoodie that helped hide her otherworldly features. They'd worked out a story. She was an artist from Eastern Europe, staying with Marcus while exploring the American desert for inspiration. It was thin, but hopefully enough. Jasper burst through the door without knocking. "As usual, Marcus." "You hermit, I brought beer and oh." He stopped short, seeing Nira perched on a stool, paintbrush in hand. "Well, hello there, Jasper, this is Nira. She's staying for a while." His friend's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. In 20 years, Marcus had never had a woman stay over, let alone for weeks. "That's so nice to meet you, Nira." "That's beautiful work." "Thank you," Nira said carefully, her accent unplaceable, but charming. She'd learned to dim the light in her eyes, to move more slowly, more human. But Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders. Jasper stayed for an hour, regaling them with town gossip and teasing Marcus mercilessly about his mysterious artist friend. When he finally left, promising to keep quiet about their visitor, Nira sagged with relief. "Difficult," she said, reverting to their mixture of words and gestures. "Pretending." "I know." Marcus wanted to comfort her, but held back. The air between them had grown charged lately, full of unspoken things. "You did great, though." He believed it. The next day brought another test. They needed supplies, and Marcus couldn't keep making solo trips to town without raising suspicion. Nira wore sunglasses despite the overcast sky, her distinctive hair hidden under a hat. Emma's general store was nearly empty, thankfully. The older woman had run the shop for 40 years and had a memory like a steel trap, but also a romantic heart. Marcus Rivera, shopping with a lady. Will wonders never cease? Emma's eyes twinkled as she rang up their items. "I'm Emma, dear. You must be special to drag this one out of his hermit cave." Nira smiled, the expression radiant even behind sunglasses. "He is teaching me about dessert. For my art. An artist, how perfect. You know, Marcus here is quite talented himself, though. He'd never admit it." Emma leaned in conspiratorially. "There's going to be a full moon in 3 nights. Perfect for painting. The dessert is magical then." As they loaded supplies into the truck, Marcus noticed Nira had gone rigid. On the radio, a news report crackled. NASA scientists remain baffled by the unusual cosmic radiation detected 3 weeks ago. The energy signature, unlike anything in their databases, appeared briefly over the Nevada desert before vanishing. "Nira." He touched her shoulder gently. "They search," she whispered, fear creeping into her voice. "My people and others." The signal. That night, she finally told him more. Not everything. He sensed walls she couldn't or wouldn't breach, but enough. She spoke of a conflict among the stars, of fleeing from something terrible, of choosing crash landing on a backwater planet over capture. "Why Earth?" Marcus asked as they sat on his porch, sharing a blanket against the desert chill. Felt safe, hidden. She paused, studying her hands. "And beautiful. Your world sings colors I never knew. Is that why you love painting?" "Part." She turned to him, starlight reflected in her eyes. Also because you love. When you paint, you glow. Inside. I see it. The admission hung between them like a held breath. Marcus reached out, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. She leaned into his touch, and for a moment, the universe contracted to just this, to beings from different worlds, finding something universal in each other. The full moon, she said softly. Emma spoke truth. We should paint it. Together, together. As they prepared for bed in their separate rooms, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The news report, Nira's fear, the way she sometimes stared at the stars with longing and dread. It all pointed to a reckoning approaching. But for now, they had paint and canvas and the promise of a desert moon. It would have to be enough. The festival lights of Cedar Falls twinkled like earthbound stars, and Marcus felt Nira's hand tighten in his as they approached the crowds. The Harvest Moon Festival was the biggest event in their small corner of Nevada, and he'd debated bringing her for days. But seeing her face light up at the sight of the paper lanterns and hearing the distant music, he knew he'd made the right choice. So many people, she breathed, wonder and worry mingling in her voice. We don't have to stay long, Marcus assured her, though part of him wanted to show her off. This mysterious woman who'd painted new colors into his monochrome life. Just enough to see the lantern release. They'd been practicing for this. How to move through crowds. How to keep her eyes downcast when the light hit them just so. How to laugh and respond like any other couple. That last part came naturally now. Somewhere between shared sunrises and paint-stained fingers intertwining. They'd stopped pretending about what was growing between them. Marcus, there you are. Tobias Crenshaw's voice cut through the festival. Noise like a rusty blade. The man materialized from the crowd, his suspicious eyes already fixed on Nira. And your friend. Marcus's jaw tightened. Tobias owned the property adjacent to his, a busybody who'd been trying to buy Marcus's land for years. Evening, Tobias. Quite the mystery woman you've got here. Tobias's smile was all teeth. No warmth. Folks have been talking. Strange lights in the desert. You keeping to yourself more than usual? Since when is that news? Marcus kept his tone light, but positioned himself slightly in front of Nira. Since you started harboring cotton candy, Nira interrupted, her accent thicker with nerves. Marcus, please. I have never tried. The deflection worked. Marcus led her away, but he could feel Tobias's stare burning into their backs. At the cotton candy stand, Nira's delight at the spun sugar temporarily erased his worry. She laughed as it dissolved on her tongue, a sound like silver bells that made several heads turn. Magic, she declared, and he had to kiss her then, right there among the crowd, tasting sugar and starlight. The kiss deepened, and for a moment Marcus forgot about hiding, about danger, about the impossibility of loving someone from another world. When they parted, Nira's eyes were bright with unshed tears. What is it? He asked softly. Happy, she whispered. Did not know could be so happy. They danced to the local band's country music, Nira following his lead with that uncanny grace she possessed. Other couples swirled around them, but Marcus only saw her, the way the festival lights caught in her hair. How her laugh rang truer than any human's. How perfectly she fit in his arms despite being carved from different stars. As midnight approached, the crowd gathered in the field for the lantern release. Hundreds of paper lanterns, each carrying a wish, would rise into the desert sky. Marcus had brought one, and together they wrote their wish in careful letters. What did we write? Nira asked, though she knew. More time, Marcus said simply. They released their lantern with the others, watching it rise toward the stars. Nira's hand found his, and he felt her tremble. What's wrong? She turned to him, and in the darkness, her natural luminescence shone through despite her efforts to suppress it. Marcus, I need to tell you something. About what I am, where I come from. You deserve truth before. Before what? A figure detached from the shadows near the parking area, tall, graceful, with the same otherworldly bearing as Nira. The woman wore human clothes, but moved like flowing water. Her eyes, when they found them across the field, blazed with urgent warning. Luna, Nira breathed. Go and rigid. My protector. If she is here, Nira. Tobias's voice boomed across the field. He stood with two other men, pointing directly At them. That's her. I saw her out by Marcus's place 3 nights ago. She was glowing. I swear it. Floating. The crowd began to murmur, turning to stare. Some laughed at Tobias, but others looked uncertain. Marcus felt Nira beginning to panic. Her control slipping. The air around her shimmered slightly, like heat mirages. We need to go, he said urgently. They moved through the crowd, but Tobias followed, his voice growing louder. She's not human. I know what I saw. Strange lights, strange sounds. That's when the lights went out. Every bulb at the festival simultaneously died, plunging them into darkness lit only by stars and the distant lanterns. In the chaos, Marcus felt a hand, not Nira's, grab his arm. Protect her, a voice said in accented English. Luna. They come for their princess. She chose love over duty, but the choice may not be hers to make. Before Marcus could respond, the lights flared back on. Luna was gone, vanished like smoke. Nira pressed against him, shaking. Home, she pleaded. Please. As they drove through the desert night, Marcus's mind reeled. Princess? The word echoed in his thoughts, even as Nira curled against him in the truck, seeking comfort. Behind them, unseen, a silver craft descended from the stars. Marcus woke to find Nira standing at his bedroom window, silhouetted against the pre-dawn sky. She'd been there for hours, he realized, watching the stars with an expression he'd never seen before. Part longing, part resignation. They're here, aren't they? He asked quietly. She didn't turn. How did you know? You're saying goodbye. I can feel it. She finally faced him, tears streaming down her cheeks, each drop catching light like liquid diamonds. Marcus, I am not who you think. I have lied. A resonant hum filled the air, and the cabin walls seemed to shimmer. Through the window, 3 figures materialized in the yard, tall, elegant beings in armor that seemed forged from nebulae themselves. The central figure stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal features both beautiful and stern. Princess Nerith, the guard spoke, his voice carrying despite the walls between them. By order of Her Majesty Queen Celestini, sovereign of the Stellar Empire, you are commanded to return home. Princess, the word hit Marcus like a physical blow. He looked at Nerith, and saw the truth written in her posture. The way she suddenly seemed to carry invisible weight. I need a moment, she called out. Her voice different now, more commanding, more regal. Grant me that, Theron. The guard, Theron, nodded curtly. 5 minutes, Highness. She turned to Marcus, reaching for him. But he stepped back. Princess Nerith, I wanted to tell you. So many times, her voice broke. But how could I? How could I say I am heir to an empire of 1,000 worlds when all I wanted was to be Nira? The girl who learned to paint sunsets with you, everything. Was a lie, no. She moved closer, and he could see her fighting to maintain control. My feelings. Our time together. That was the only truth I've known in my entire existence. Marcus. I ran from an arranged marriage, from a life mapped out. Before I was born, I crashed here by accident, but stayed by choice. Because of you. A shimmering portal opened in the living room, and Theron entered, flanked by 2 other guards. Up close, Marcus could see the family resemblance, the same ethereal beauty, the same impossible eyes, but where Nira's eyes held warmth, Theron's were cold as distant stars. Your Highness, Theron said formally. Then his composure cracked slightly. Nerith, please, the kingdom needs you. Your mother needs you. This dalliance has gone on long enough. Dalliance, Marcus found his voice, anger overriding hurt. Is that what this was? You dare address the crowned princess so familiarly? One of the other guards stepped forward, but Nerith raised a hand. Stop. All of you, stop. She drew herself up, and suddenly Marcus could see it. The princess she'd been hiding. Regal, powerful, born to rule. Theron, activate the communion crystal. I would speak with my mother. The guard produced a crystalline device that projected a life-sized hologram. The woman who appeared took Marcus's breath away. Nerethan. 30 years, crowned with light itself, beautiful and terrible as a supernova. My daughter. Queen Celestine's voice resonated with power and disappointment. You have led us on quite the chase, Mother. Nerith bowed slightly. I present Marcus Rivera of Earth, the man I love. The Queen's gaze turned to Marcus, And he felt exposed, measured, found wanting, a primitive worlder, an artist who repairs machines. This is who you would choose over Prince Davin, whose union would unite our empire. Yes, Nerith said simply, the man who knows nothing of our ways, our responsibilities. The weight of 10 billion souls depending on your leadership. He knows me, Nerith replied. Not the princess, not the symbol, me. The queen was silent for a long moment. Then you have 1 hour to make your farewells. The transport awaits. The hologram faded. Theron and his guards withdrew to the yard, leaving them alone. Marcus sank onto the couch, head in his hands. A princess. You're a princess of a galactic empire. I'm still me. She knelt before him, taking his hands. I'm still the girl who cried the first time she saw a sunset, who burns every meal she tries to cook, who falls asleep on your shoulder while you read poetry. But you're leaving. I have to. My world is on the brink of war. My marriage to Davin would prevent it, save billions of lives. Her voice broke. How can I choose my happiness over so many? Marcus looked at her then, really looked, saw the weight crushing her, the impossible choice. His anger evaporated, replaced by the love that had grown between them like desert flowers after rain. I know, he said softly. I know you have to go. Doesn't mean I have to like it. She kissed him then, desperate and deep, pouring 3 months of love into a moment. When they parted, both were crying. In another life, she whispered, I would have been just Nira. We would have painted the desert and grown old watching stars. In another life, he agreed, holding her close one last time when Theron returned. Nerith stood tall, every inch the princess, but her eyes never left Marcus as she walked toward the transport that would take her back to the stars. Nerith, Marcus called out. She turned. Will I ever see you again? She smiled through her tears. Among my people, we have a saying, love is the only force that transcends dimensions. If that's true, then this is not goodbye. The transport doors closed, and in a flash of light that painted the desert silver, she was gone. Marcus stood in his empty yard until the sun rose, painting the sky in all the colors she'd taught him to see. 6 months had passed since Nerith left Earth, and Marcus had thrown himself into his art with desperate fervor. His latest exhibition in Santa Fe, Colors from Beyond, had attracted unexpected attention. Every painting held her essence. Impossible hues that shouldn't exist with Earth pigments, yet somehow did. Mr. Rivera, a woman approached as he adjusted a painting's position. Your work is extraordinary. I'm Kira, cultural attaché from the Stellarin Embassy. Marcus nearly dropped the painting. The what? She smiled knowingly. Your planets. First contact protocols were activated 5 months ago. Princess Nerith insisted Earth be brought into the Galactic Coalition immediately. I believe you know her. His heart raced. Is she? How is she? Kira's expression grew sympathetic. The royal wedding to Prince Davin is in 3 days. The princess requested I give you this. She handed him a small crystal that pulsed with familiar warmth. That night, in his cabin, Marcus activated the crystal. Nerith's image appeared, smaller than life but achingly real. My beloved Marcus, her recorded message began. By the time you see this, the embassy will have made contact. I've done everything I could to delay the wedding, to change our laws, but tradition holds strong. I want you to know that every sunrise I see reminds me of that first morning in your cabin. Every star I pass whispers your name. I love you, across every light year between us. Be happy, my desert painter. Find someone who, no. Marcus spoke to the empty air. No, I won't. He spent the night working, not on a painting, but on something else entirely. By dawn, exhausted but determined, he stood before Kira at the embassy. I need to get to Stellara, he said. To the wedding, that's impossible. Humans aren't equipped for hyperspatial travel, and even if you were, interrupting a royal wedding, then make me possible, Marcus interrupted. She fought for Earth to join your coalition. The least you can do is give me a chance to fight for her. Kira studied him for a long moment, then smiled. You know what? The princess isn't the only romantic in the Empire. Hold still. This might tingle. The next hours blurred. Treatments to prepare his body for space travel. A crash course in Stellarin customs. And finally, stepping onto a ship that defied every law of physics he knew. The journey through hyperspace was like traveling inside a kaleidoscope. When they emerged near Stellara, Marcus gasped. 3 suns painted the sky in impossible colors, and cities of crystal floated among clouds of stardust. The wedding's already started, Kira said urgently, but I know another romantic who might help. Prince Davin was nothing like Marcus expected. Young, kind-eyed, and clearly miserable as he waited at the altar while Nerith approached in a gown woven from starlight. Your Highness, Kira whispered, pulling Davin aside. The Earth artist is here. Davin's eyes widened, then filled with relief. Thank the cosmos. I've been praying for a miracle. He turned to the assembly. I invoke the right of challenge. Gasps echoed through the crystal cathedral. Queen Celestini rose from her throne. On what grounds? On the grounds that the princess loves another, and our union would be built on duty alone. By our ancient laws, if one who holds her heart will prove their worth, the engagement may be dissolved. All eyes turned as Marcus stepped forward, feeling ridiculous in borrowed formal wear. Among these celestial beings, a human, voices whispered. Impossible. Queen Celestini descended from her throne, power radiating from every step. You would claim my daughter's hand. You, who have no kingdom, no fleet, no power among the stars. No, Marcus said simply. I have none of those things, but I have something Prince Davin doesn't, her heart. And she has mine. Pretty words, but love alone cannot rule an empire. Then test me, Marcus challenged, finding courage in Nerith's shocked, hopeful gaze. Whatever you require. What followed was a trial unlike any in Stellaran history, not of strength or power, but of understanding. The Queen probed his mind, his dedication, his willingness to bridge two worlds. She made him paint with tools he'd never seen, expressing concepts beyond human comprehension. But Marcus had learned from the best, from Nerith herself. Finally, exhausted, he stood before the assembly with his final creation, a painting that somehow captured the essence of their love story. Earth and Stellara united, 2 souls finding each other across impossible odds. The Queen studied it for a long moment. You would live among us, learn our ways, help your primitive world grow into the coalition. I would live wherever Nerith is, Marcus said. Earth, Stellara, or anywhere between. Queen Celestini turned to her daughter. And you would have this human, knowing the challenges ahead. I would have him if he were made of stardust or desert sand, Nerith said, tears streaming. My choice has never wavered. The Queen's stern expression softened, just slightly. Then, I invoke my right as monarch to evolve our traditions. Love that transcends worlds should not be bound by outdated laws. Prince Davin was the first to applaud, followed by Kira, then the entire assembly. Nerith ran down the aisle, launching herself into Marcus's arms. You impossible, wonderful fool. She sobbed. How, you taught me that love transcends dimensions, he said, holding her close. I figured it was time to prove it. As they kissed, beneath the light of 3 suns, the cathedral erupted in celebration. Earth and Stellara had found their bridge, not through politics or power, but through the love of an artist and his fallen star. So, Marcus whispered, wanna paint some galaxies together? Nerith laughed, bright as supernovas, forever. And, in that moment, the universe grew a little smaller, a little brighter, bound together by the greatest force of all, love that refused to recognize the word impossible.